Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7 with my own personal racing league NTRL, which is now in its 4th season with round 1 taking place at Francorchamps. Now here is some basic outlines of the league itself because it's well changed a little bit. It's now a Group 3 and Group 4 multi-class league. It features a 15-minute sprint after a 15-minute qualifying session, and the sprint will then set the grid for the hour-long feature race. Now in terms of drivers, they are ranked bronze, silver and gold. Now they do have their own individual championships to go for, however they still have the overall as well. There is teams and each team will feature a gold, silver and bronze driver, with the bronze taking part in the Group 4 championship and obviously the gold and silver being in Group 3. Now usually if there was actually no weather at all, so it was a dry race, there would be set compounds of tyres, but well that's not the case for today's race as it is going to be mixed conditions. The possibility of rain is there as well as dry spells as well. So let's go ahead and get into round 1 of the season to see what it's going to be like. But first of all, we're going to head around Spa in the safety car to give you a few pointers and a few things to look out for. Now turn 1 we're going to be using the 24-hour layout, so this essentially won't be your turn 1 to begin with, but it will be for the rest of the race. Now if you are in a pack there, you're probably not in for the best time. Then obviously we have the famous Eau Rouge and Radion, obviously going up the hill there. Again, if you get it a little bit wrong through there, you can expect a decent penalty for corner cutting. Then just at the end of the big straight, you've got the right, left, right section. Again, it's all about trying to get your line to perfection. You get it a bit wrong and more than likely you're going to end up in the gravel at the exit of the second right-hander. Then obviously we go down the hill. Due to it being downhill, you've got to adjust your braking zone accordingly into the right-hander, and it's going to sort of loop around on itself. Again, you do see a lot of cars spinning on exit there, as you can see the safety car getting the rear end out. And then into this left-hander, again you want to try and sort of run up on the curb, but run it too much and you're probably going to be facing the wrong way. Into the sweeping left-hander here, again get it trapped on the curb in these low slung race cars, and more than likely it's just going to carry you straight on and onto the runoff area. Then you've got the hard braking zone for the right-hander. Again, you really want to get this lined up properly so you can do the right and left pretty much to perfection, and what you're looking for on the exit here is the curb. Now you touch that in the wet and you can guarantee you're either spinning round or you're going to get carried away. Then you've got the right-hander once again. Now this one's not too bad, you can sort of get out on the curb and get a nice line through there. However, this right-hander is much more much more of a car killer, mainly because the exit curb is very steep and it essentially traps a ton of cars throughout. The left-hander here, again in the wet conditions, we saw a bunch of people spin last season, so you do have to be careful there. And then you've got the right-left to finish off with. Again, the left-hander, it's going to be quite difficult to get the power down if you get it too much on the curb. So that is a brief overview of Spa and some of its problems. Now let's get into the race 1. So this is going to be the sprint race, and away we go with Gr.4 on pole, who's instantly been overtook by Superkarts there. So as you can see, we are well away, and it's looking like Gr.4 has lost yet another place, this time to my Mercedes AMG. So as you can honestly see, there is a ton of teams here. We are featuring obviously the AMG, we've got McLaren, Ferrari, Porsche and Lamborghini all battling it out over a single title, as well as individual titles and team titles as well. So Shikata's got it pretty much covered, and then as you can see just a little bit back from that, you've got myself and Gr.4 battling it out. He's going to get the inside line into the right-hander, and we're going to basically dip back into the pack. As you can see, tons of battles already going off down the grid into the silver category, mainly as the golds are sort of kind of tucked in at this point. So into the left-hander, again get it wrong on that curb and it's all going to go absolutely wrong for you for probably the entirety of this sprint race. Obviously this race is to basically set the grid for the main feature race, so you really don't want to be taking too many risks, but you still want to be making those moves and getting yourself straight up that grid. As you can see, Jay's getting it a little bit wide there and overtook by our silver driver Viper there in the second Lamborghini, his teammate being Timo as well as DWG in the Group 4. So the Group 3s are away, kind of a mixed bag between the gold and silver so far, all very much staying together in a single pack. And then we're going to have a look into the Group 4s as they got off the line. So we're just looking toward the back of the grid here. As you can see, obviously the Group 4s are going to be a little bit off the pace as the Group 3 sprint away and the Group 4s get into their battle. Now you may see a McLaren there. Now that is just because Ace's Punisher, the silver McLaren driver, did actually miss the qualifying. So obviously started from the back. So he's got a lot of work to do. He's got to work his way through these Group 4s without kind of affecting their battle too much, and get himself back into the rest of the pack. So we're going through, as you can see, it's a decent start by a lot of them. We've got Tony and Arch kind of leading the way, with Steve and Jody then battling away. As you can see, she was going to get it down the inside, but I think Steve just got that one covered, as we see Punisher's Ace trying to work his way through this pack at the early stages as well. And then we've got DWG in the Lamborghini last off. So a fairly clear getaway really by all of the groups. So let's go on to lap 2 now, and there's going to be our first major accident of the season, unfortunately involving myself and a Viper. So, you know, it just kind of is what it is. I think the Lamborghini just gets the braking zone wrong, as we have to slow down for his teammate just in front, and he's going to basically give us a nice knock and spin the AMG all the way around, as pretty much all of the gold and silver drivers go through. As we can see, Ace's Punisher by the end of lap 1 is already getting himself towards the rear of that silver category. We've got Professor Smiles actually beating his teammate at this point, as well as Viper actually, although he does have a 4-second penalty to serve, as Jace not having the best opening laps here at Spa, but he does go through. And both of the Porsches are now off and up the road as Viper begins to serve his 4-second penalty. As we can see, Daryl also coming through in the silver rated Ferrari, as well as one of the AMGs in the background, which is going to be yours truly after that accident. So all's kind of well, you know, the kind of, you know, penalty was, you know, pretty fair, considering we did manage to, you know, pretty much get back up there. Now up front though, we do have Shikata and J Mira basically running away with it. We do also have Timo's Lamborghini just in the background, but he's not really in this battle as of yet. So Shikata's Ferrari absolutely sprinting away. Obviously all cars on soft tyres, so this is going to be the fastest they will realistically be for the entire weekend, just to the fact that there is no fuel and no tyre weight in the sprint race. Obviously it's essentially, you know, you do your qualifying, that kind of sets you up for the sprint race, and then the sprint race really does kind of set the grid for the feature race. So there's kind of 2 chances at getting those big points on the board for the main race. In terms of Group 4, we've got Arch now leading the way to Tommy Hawk, or Tony, in the Ferrari. As you can see, he's got himself a half-a-second penalty. Now is mainly going to be for track limits. He may end up dropping back towards Steve, as you can see, or Steve just getting a little bit wide there in the Group 4 Porsche, but he is holding there in the, you know, in terms of the overall pack, so he's not doing a very bad job at all. Then we also have DWG, who's made the move on Jody there, sitting P14, just trying to get himself back in with the rest of the guys. Obviously clear track ahead for him, and that Lamborghini very, very quick here at Spa. Then we do have Jody just a little bit back, just having a bit of a difficult time really adjusting to the new Group 4 AMG SLS. Now in terms of its overall pace, it's probably not the strongest, but it is still a fairly decent car. So up front again in the sprint race, we do have Shikata and J Mira still battling out. Shikata's going to get it wide, catching himself on that curb that we mentioned on our safety car kind of reconnaissance lap, and Mira is going to get himself through there into P1. A little bit later on in the race, onto lap 6, we're still in dry conditions, so no rain really expected for the sprint race. Obviously only a 15-minute race, and J Mira is going to get it wide and dip himself into that gravel after once again catching himself on the exit curve. So again, curbs really playing a big part here, and then he's going to have a bit of a spin, and that's going to really affect his position as Shikata and Timo both go through. Timo, just to note, having a few connection problems on this evening. Again, his kind of car will look a bit laggy, so I do apologise for that. It just kind of is one of those things at this point. So Timo's battling out with Shikata, but a little bit further back we've still got myself trying to get our way through the pack. Now we're currently up to P6 at this point, although we did drop rather quite a bit back. We are beginning to rein in the Porsches. As we can see, Jace has overtook Professor Smiles to be the lead Porsche in these kind of gold battle, and we're trying to get ourselves back through the pack as the lead AMG. So not a great sprint race for the AMG team. As you can see, we're right on the back of the Porsche, and well, Professor's going to get it a little bit wrong on that curb. Once again, someone being caught out by the curbs, and we are now through up to P5 and ready to go ahead and chase down his teammate with only a few minutes left. As we can see, we're on the final lap now, and we are going to be right on the back of the Porsche RSR of Jace, obviously the leading Porsche in this race. Obviously, if we can get past him, we will start a very decent P4, which will be a fairly good recovery overall for AMG, and give us a good shot at some proper points into the main feature race. And it's kind of tradition at this point that round one of every season, or at least some point during the season, me and Jace have some insanely close battles. Then, well, that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to try everything we can to just put him off. We're going to flash the lights. We're going to try and make a few dummy moves, but he's just not going to budge. He's sticking that Porsche on the racing line, as we just saw, I believe, Jay Mira go through there in the McLaren in the foreground. Into the right-hander, there's only a few more chances left at getting that place. As you can see, the timer has run out, and we are on the final lap. Now, the AMG does seem to have overall a better top speed, especially running in that slipstream. It's very powerful here at Spa, and that's what we're going to try all the way up to the right left for the final few corners. As you can see, we have managed to absolutely close the gap, but are we going to be able to brake late enough? It's looking like the move just really wasn't on. So in terms of winning the sprint race, it was essentially going to be Timo, but I believe some contact early on he has let Shikata have that position back. So Shikata takes P1, Timo takes P2, Jay Mira after his spin takes P3, and as you can see, all the way up to the line, it was myself and Jace. So Jace taking P4 and myself P5. Viper's going to win the silver class for the sprint race and take P6 overall. Great result for him. Same with Professor, P2 in class. Ace's Punisher does a great recovery from the back of the grid for a P8. Dan, he's going to take P9. Again, not a great race for him. He did say that he didn't want to watch the sprint race with this video, and Daryl's going to take the top 10 positions. Winning the Group 4 class, it's going to be Archangel by a decent margin. Obviously, the only car to do an extra lap there for the Group 4s. In P2 in Group 4, though, it is going to be Steve after Tommy basically just dropped way back. And then we've got DWG again making up another position due to Tony's off or error earlier on in the sprint race. And then we're finally going to get Tommy Hawk cross the line. A disappointing sprint race for him. And finally, to finish up the grid, all 15 cars going across, 3 cars per team, is going to be Jody. So that is the sprint race done. So let's have a quick look at the fastest lap. So Gr.3 fastest lap was at 2:16.670, set by Jay Mira early on in that race. Obviously a ton of pace for him in that McLaren. And the Group 4 fastest lap was at 2:29.917, set by DWG in the later stages of that race in the Lamborghini. So let's get on to the feature race. So weather will play a part. Now usually this would be an hour race, however, just due to time constraints and a bunch of kind of connection issues this evening, it's going to be dropped to 30 minutes, but we are still going to have the weather come in night and day cycle. So let's get straight into the feature race, set at obviously a bit of a later time than the sprint race, which was mainly in the day. This one is going to be mainly at night. So Shikata leads the way, obviously taking the win in the previous sprint race. He obviously qualifies on pole with Timo just behind him. As you can see, Jay Mira already under pressure, really kind of slowing himself down into the corner to make the AMG go a little bit slow through there. We did have one of the Porsches running off, that was Professor Smiles, but he does manage to keep it on track, as all of the silvers are in their own pack, as well as the Group 4s coming through there. So overall, a great race kind of early on by absolutely everyone. Fairly clean so far. No major accidents. The Mercedes gets itself out on the curb, and it's looking like Dan's going to try and make the move on that McLaren, as the McLaren does get itself pretty much chopped up on that curb there and caught on it. So let's check in with the Group 4 machines now to see how they got away for their main feature race. Obviously, Archangel is on pole. Steve does look to get the absolute run on him there. He does get the inside line, but he's going to have a bit of contact with Arch there, and that's going to cause him to go nice and wide going up the hill onto the main straight. So a loss of massive momentum. There's Jody looking to be going very, very slow, which she may have had a bit of contact and a bit of a bump there. It just seems like that kind of happened almost instantly. So Arch does lead the way after his contact with Steve. Behind him, though, we do have the Lamborghini, which is very, very quick in the straights. We have Tony also making a move on Steve. So Steve just absolutely dropping down the order after getting bumped by Arch there at the start. And then we do have Jody at the back of the grid. On to lap 2 now, and as you can see, we've still got Shikata leading, but it's not going to be for very long, as it's all going to get a bit carnagey. Now, J Mirror goes to the inside of Timo, taps him, who then taps Shikata, and my Mercedes gets caught up in it. And yeah, I mean, a bunch of cars really getting caught up in a fairly, silly accident at that point. It's looking like J Mirror has managed to get through though, after his kind of dive on the inside there of Timo and catching him. We do also have the Ferrari in P2 as well. And yeah, I mean, pretty much all the cars getting caught up there, including myself. Now, in terms of the silver Mercedes, we're going to check in with Dan, see how he's getting on. He's having a much better feature race than he was a sprint race. In terms of Daryl, again, he's having a fairly decent race, sort of keeping that Ferrari in there. In P9, we also have Professor Smiles. Not a great race for him, not really where he was going to want to be after such a successful season in Season 3. Obviously coming into the league and winning his category for the Group 3 cars back then. So yeah, I mean, he's doing fairly well, but he's just going to want to be moving up that grid as fast as possible. Now we're going to have Jace trying to make a move on Shikata. Is he going to be able to get this one off? We've got the Ferrari on the inside, the Porsche on the outside. Is he going to be able to get that one done? And he does. Before they even get to the corner, he gets that one closed off and done. The Ferrari is trying to fight back, but it's looking like it just cannot quite keep up with the Porsche. The Porsche really coming into its own in these cooler temperatures. Now we do have myself and Shikata with a second penalty, and again, that is kind of just for track limits. I believe we both ran the one of the final curbs and just kind of got caught and dragged away. But we are going to manage to get it down the inside of the Ferrari, which means Shikata has now gone from P1 to P4 within just a few laps. Checking in with the Group 4s, and we do have Archangel getting it a little bit sideways after running wide, side by side with Tony there. As you can see, the Ferrari does have the inside line, and he's just overran that, so Arch dips back inside, and the Ferrari has lost that position when it could have realistically gained it. We do have Steve just on the back of this grid, so the pack really tight here, bar the SLS, which is just a little bit further back. As we can see, we've still got DWG there as Steve kind of gets into the side of Tony there. They are still side by side though, so which one's got the more pace? It's looking like the Ferrari just overall has a better top speed there and holds that line, with the Lamborghini also closing in at this stage in the race. Again, looking like Steve's just going to drop back realistically there, as he does. As you can see, the main two cars, really, the Ferrari and the McLaren's beginning to sort of build that gap up, and DWG beginning to kind of get on the back of that pack. Now J Mirror, he's going to go into the right-hander, into left-hander, and then into the pits. So he's going to be the first car to box. As we saw, the first Group 4 car to box was the SLS Group 4 of Jody, who's also gone in for tyres. Obviously, we do have variable conditions, and it's looking like we're beginning to get a bit of rain out on track. So Mirror's into the pits. We also have a bunch of other cars into the pits here. As you can see, we've also got Jason. He's then going to take tyres and fuel to try and cover off any kind of wet weather and such. So again, he's going to do the same as J Mirror, probably a full tank of fuel and a decent set of tyres, and that should really do you. The leader of the silver group, Viper, he is in the pits again. He's going to take the same strategy realistically, as well as Dan as well. So it's going to be a very close battle between the silvers, and a pretty close battle and a run out of the pits between pretty much all the classes at this point. There really wasn't really anything in this kind of group of cars. There wasn't any major gaps building up at this present time. Steve, a little bit later, he's going to get into the pits for the Group 4 Porsche. Again, all the Porsches now taking their pit stops. As you can see, the rain just sort of coming down in the background there. You are going to want to get that covered off as soon as possible. We also have Arch in the pits at the same time, as well as Tony in the pits in the Group 4 Ferrari. So it's all about who's going to exit the pits first, and it's looking like it's going to be the Ferrari of Tony, followed by the McLaren of Arch, and then the Porsche of Steve. Now we also know that the SLS has also pitted at this point, which just left the Lamborghini out on track. Now a little bit later on, and J Mirror seems to be struggling with his choice of tyres, massively reducing that gap, although he built one up kind of after the pit stop. Originally he began to fall back very quickly into the clutches of Jace and myself. As you can see, we have managed to recover the Mercedes once again, this time up to P3 as we try and chase down that Porsche 911 of Jace once again. In terms of the Group 4s, we do have Tony leading it at this point. Obviously he's taking the overall top 10. If you do notice that we have lost a car, it's just because of connection issues with Ace's Punisher, so the silver McLaren is kind of out of this race. Then we have Archangel in P2 for the Group 4s, with Steve just behind him as J Mirror goes through, which obviously means that the rest of the pack of the 911 and the AMG will soon to be following. So Steve in P3 in the Cayman. Again, he's having a fairly quiet but decent race, just falling back realistically after the pit stops, which is probably not what he would have wanted. Then we have the DWG. He's just leading away from Jodie. That early pit stop really, kind of bringing her into this race. So although she did drop back, she is starting to charge up the field and being one of the faster Group 4s currently in the wet conditions. It's always something she seems to excel at, and she's doing it again here as she actually makes up another place. So we will have a quick look at that in a minute, but that's in P13 now for Jodie, and some critical points on the board. So let's have a look what went wrong for DWG. He just catches it on that curb, gets himself across the inside and on the grass, and runs it wide, and that's going to allow Jodie to continue her push through the field and continue her charge in the SLS, doing a great job on the kind of tricky wet conditions. Now up front to the front of the pack, as you can see for P2, although kind of Mirror's only just there, and we are going to essentially slow each other down, myself and Jace, by battling each other at this point. But it's critical points at this stage of the championship. Obviously 6 rounds for this one, with 2 races per meeting, so a total of 12 races to get your points in. And every point is going to count with these shortened seasons, so we are trying everything we can to get ourselves past the Porsche, and we have dropped back a little bit there, obviously just trying to be wary not to end up in his rear end there. J Mirror is going to lead though. He's going to continue his charge out front, only just, not really building up the gap he probably wanted in these wet conditions, as we continue to try and make the move on Jace, trying to get it up the inside. Can we out drag him into the right hander? Obviously it's on a bit of a decline there, and then we're going to have to be kind of as late on the brakes as possible, but also being wary that the Porsche is still going to be there, and we still haven't broke away. We're still side by side, and that's going to give the Porsche the inside line as we try and get a bit of a switch back there. It's going to be unsure if we can do it, but the Porsche does get a kick at the rear end, and we do finally get that position done. Almost a kind of repeat of what happened with Professor in the dry conditions of race 1, as Shikata begins to sort of reel it in, although he does have a second penalty. So Dan, he is now leading the silver category and has a P5 overall, which is a fantastic result for him, which also means he's now ahead of one of the gold drivers, which I believe is the Lamborghini of Timo, which I think just had a pretty appalling race. Also Viper, he's not too far behind, but has lost out since the pit stops, and he's again going to get it a little bit wide there, catching himself on that curb, but luckily it doesn't drag him too far away. Professor begins his charge up the field. Again, just a fairly quiet race for him. Probably not the feature race he was wanting. With Darrell in the Ferrari doing a fairly decent job overall in P8, and doing a good job for getting Ferrari some points on the board. And there he is, Timo himself, P9, just having a bit of a stinker of a race. Really feeling for him. Obviously the connection issue is also not helping that. P10 overall though is going to be Tony, and he's going to be leading the way for the Group 4s, and yeah, he's just having a fairly great time in that Ferrari, absolutely gapping the rest of the field, with Archangel in P11 and P2 in category. Again, a great race really by him. He's not really put a foot wrong, maybe a little bit aggressive on the opening, but apart from that we can't fault him, as Steve gets it nice and wide, catching himself on that curb, and then yeah, kind of struggling in the damp conditions to get it back on as he goes all the way around the curve basically, but he does get it going once again. P13 is Jodie. She's actually massively gapped DWG at this point, and again continues her charge up the field. So a very, very good job by her in the wet conditions. And then P14, we do have DWG, and in the final position of this race. So in terms of the win, it was Jay Mira in the end after myself and Jace were battling it out. So P1 for him, well done to him. P2 is going to go to myself in the AMG, finally getting those points on the board with Jace P3 and Shikata finishing in P4 after, you know, kind of dropping back and having his penalty. He just couldn't quite get on the back of myself and Jace. P5, and the winner of silver is going to go to Dan. Great points on the board for AMG there, so well done to him, and a solid result, especially after his sprint race. P6, again a great result by Viper, doing very, very well in that Lamborghini. P7 is going to go to Professor Smiles in the Porsche. Not a great race for him, fairly quiet overall. Darrow's going to take P8 in the Ferrari, yet more points on the board for that team, with P9 going to Timo. A pretty sad race for him, really feeling for him in that race. P10 overall, and the winner of Gr.4 is going to go to Tommy Hawk, or Tony, in the Ferrari. Great result for him as he continues his battle with Archangel there in P2. Professor Smiles, as you can see, he's already gone through. It's the Porsche of Steve that I'm going to be talking about now, who does seem to have ran out of fuel on the line there, so not really quite sure what's going on, but he's going to basically just crawl across the line. Just manages to keep his P3 in class, and a P12 overall. P13 overall and P4 in class is going to go to Jodie. Absolutely excelling in the wet conditions. A very clean drive there in the second half of that race, so well done to her. P14 obviously, and the final position is going to go to DWG in the Lamborghini. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at the fastest laps. Gr.3 was a 2:18.476, once again by Jay Mira, with the Gr.4 once again by DWG with a 2:33.207 in the Lamborghini. So let's head over and have a look at the point standings now. As you can see, we have Jay Mira leading the way on 50 points, taking almost the maximum, but not quite getting, you know, the entire maximum. We do then have Shikata with 44, myself on 41, Jace on 40, Viper leading the way in this silver class with 34, Timo 32, Dan on 27, Professor Smiles 26, Daryl 18, Ace's Punisher after his kind of disconnect on 11, leading the Gr.4 is going to be Arch on 10, then Tony 9, Steve 8, DWG on 5, and Jodie just behind and last in 4 points. So that is your overall individual standings, as well as your gold, silver and bronze standings. So, you know, some fairly surprising results there, but overall looking very, very close as we continue on in the season. Now let's go ahead and have a look at the overall team standings. This is a combined points of the gold, silver and bronze driver for each team, and we have Porsche leading the way with 74 points, Mercedes on 72, so only 2 points in it. But again, if we look really close at the bottom, there is 3 teams on level points, so there's only 3 entire points in this entire thing. We have McLaren 71, Ferrari 71 and Lamborghini 71, so very, very close going into round 2, and I absolutely cannot wait to get this one covered. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll have my Mini Cooper League covered probably the day after this one goes up, and then the day after that I'll have the Superkart footage as well. The league resumes again this weekend for both the GT Open and this NTRL Season 4, so those videos should be up sometime next week. Again, big thank you to everyone for the support recently, and I will see you all later on. Take care guys, peace.